Again, thank you for joining us today for our webinar talking about the Autodesk Construction Cloud and why engineers need it. My name is Kyle Lee. I'm our Senior Construction Solutions Specialist here with ATG USA, and I'm happy to be joined by my colleague, Lisa Stine from the Autodesk Construction Solutions team. So I've been with ATG for about 8 years. I'm actually coming up on my 8-year anniversary next week, and been working with the different Autodesk cloud-hosted solutions ever since the inception of collaboration for Revit, way back in, I think that was the 2016 version of this Revit software. And so we've naturally seen that progression move, from what was collaboration for Revit and the use of BIM 360 teams into what was introduced as the next generation BIM 360 platform, and now into the Autodesk Construction Cloud unified platform. So, and prior to my time with ATG, I also had 12 years in the electrical distribution industry, working with electrical subcontractors and general contractors across the southeast portion of the United States. So, really get to draw from my industry-based experience prior to coming to ATG whenever we're having conversations like this. So just wanted to provide a brief introduction and a little bit of background on myself. Lisa, I'd love it if you could do the same.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, so nice to chat with all of you today. As Kyle mentioned, my name is Lisa Stine, and I am a member of the Autodesk Construction Solution team. My role there is partner marketing manager, which just means I work very closely with our partners like ATG to make sure that they have all the content and resources that they need to be able to speak with you, our customers, right? And really align with them. We're very much a one team here. I've been at Autodesk for about 4 years. Previous to my role now, I was a technical solutions executive focused on global named accounts, did that for a couple of years, again, focused on construction. And then previous to that was in sales for a little bit. And just like Kyle, I come from the electric utility industry. I studied as a structural engineer and spent about 8 years in design and construction of electric utility transmission structures, and then made my way into software. So happy to be here today.
Great. Thanks so much, Lisa. I appreciate that. So everyone, before we actually kind of get into the meat of the conversation for today, I've got a couple of poll questions that I wanted to roll out here. So I'm going to get the poll started right now. It's just 2 very simple questions here. So that poll is launching right now. The first question is, are you currently using one of the following for project collaboration? And so the options there are the Autodesk Construction Cloud, BIM 360, PlanGrid, Procore, or other platforms. And then the second poll question here is, in what part of the project process are you most involved? So that being either design coordination, pre-construction being quantity takeoffs, estimations, or bid management, or field execution. So would really appreciate it if everybody could take just a second here to basically just answer those 2 poll questions, give us a little bit more understanding of maybe your awareness of what products are out there, and also so that we better understand what aspects of the project process that you're really involved in, so that we can speak to that as much as possible over the course of our conversation today. So it looks like just about everyone has filled out the poll questions here. We're going to give that just another second or 2. It looks like by and large, the majority of the folks on the call today have utilized or are currently utilizing the BIM 360 platform. And it looks like we've got some close runners up in both PlanGrid as well as in the Procore platforms as well. I do see that if you have actually started to get into the Construction Cloud platform, that's very, very promising to hear, and I'm glad to hear that, and look forward to seeing more people start to move towards that platform as they start to learn about the more connected features and functionalities and how they can work both from the design aspect and even forward downstream through the remainder of the project process itself. And it looks like for the majority of the folks on our call today, most are involved in the design process or the design coordination process. So that's great. We've got some really good content. We're going to be talking specifically to some of those areas today on our webinar. And so again, thank you everyone for taking the time to fill out those couple of poll questions there. I'm going to go ahead and wrap those up now. All right. So here's the results of the poll there. You should be able to see those. Again, just what I was mentioning just a few moments ago for everyone. And so we'll turn that poll off. Okay, great. So now let's move on into the kind of meat of today's conversation. And we really want to talk about, the 5 reasons, or 5 of the reasons that are out there as to why engineers would need to utilize or can utilize the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. And so the ones that we're going to really, focus in on today are the fact that the Autodesk Construction Cloud can act as that single source, a clear single source of truth for your project or your common data environment. You may hear both of those terms used. So that's why we've got CDE there at the end for common data environment. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about methods that we can, how we can use this platform to better control file sharing. And I've actually got a couple of examples that we'll talk about when it comes to control file sharing. Next, we'll talk about the ability to utilize the platform to design in the same space at the same time as your design partners and project partners. Also, we'll talk about the ease of being able to self-check your work within the platform. And then lastly, we'll talk about visibility into issue responsibility and why that is so important on projects as well. And what's kind of interesting is we've got our 5 points that we really want to focus in on today and that we're going to talk about extensively during the webinar. But one of the points that's not even on the list, but I think is just as important, if maybe not even one of the most important reasons why engineering teams such as yourselves may want to utilize this platform, is because the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform is the only platform that's out there that is really intended to be utilized from the outset of the project, from the outset of project design, and can be utilized throughout the remaining stages within the construction process. So again, we're not in a scenario like we find ourselves in utilizing other platforms where really the design process itself takes place completely outside of the platform that's going to be utilized for managing the project as a whole. And so I've always try to call that out, the fact that this is the one platform that's out there and available that is designed to consume the native design file types that your teams are primarily utilizing, whether those are AutoCAD file types, Revit file types, or even Navisworks file types. So that's one advantage that the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform does have there, and the fact that we're not going to be losing any of that information, any of that rich metadata that may be built into your models and to your construction documents during the design phase, that in certain instances may be kind of stripped out when we convert those design files over into a standard 2D construction document or PDF that we're handing over there. Okay, so wanted to call that out, but let's go ahead and move forward, and let's start talking about some of the points that we've got here listed. So first and foremost, we want to talk about the Autodesk Construction Cloud being able to act as that clear single source of truth, so that common data environment. That's the biggest challenge that we see project teams facing when it comes to design and construction projects, is the fact that so many different people are using so many different solutions. And how are we making sure that everybody has access to and is connected with the most up-to-date data there? So in this next slide here, you can see, and just as it says here, construction is collaborative, but really it's still somewhat fragmented. As you can see, we have our different design teams here. We have our different phases here, whether we're talking about the design phase, our planning phase, or pre-construction, our actual execution or building phase, and then the handover to operations as well. As you can see here, we have different teams operating within each of these phases of the construction process. And the thing here is that communications within a team and across teams in the different phases of the process happen through various formats. Sometimes it may be through email, it could be through file exchange, whether those are documents, PDFs, design files, and even paper, really. And that's a bigger issue there, is how are we making sure that what's being communicated between the teams is actually staying true to the most up-to-date information. And then even more so, as we get ready to move between different phases of the project, how do we know that this data that we have been basically, building towards the project during our respective phases is clearly communicated and handed over to teams that may be participating in the other phases of the project here. Okay, so what we're really trying to drive towards here is a move away from more of these kind of modularized phases of the construction process and moving into what's really looked at as more of this new possibility of the connected construction process. And through the use of a common data environment or a single source of truth like the Autodesk Construction Cloud, we can see that these teams are more connected. Everyone is working out of the same project, you might say, that's been created in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Teams are able to better communicate with one another. And again, what this is driving is driving best-in-class capabilities to enhance the collaboration through meaningful workflows for all phases of construction, whether we're talking about from design authoring all the way to facilities management here. And really, this is only available and only possible through a strong and connected foundation, which is what that Autodesk Construction Cloud is. And so it allows you to, having that shared data allows for assertive decision making. It really enables more predictive insights into the project and gives you the ability to better deliver and even start to better predict potential business outcomes over the course of projects as they take place. So again, as you can see here on this slide, we have all teams that are more connected throughout the process of the project. And in that single source of truth is the ability to house all of our information around our project drawings, our design models, the ability to manage our teams that are participating in the project, the ability to set up and manage assets for the project as well, possibly. Also better manage the project cost. But overall, the ability just to have access to the important data for the project and being able to leverage that data and knowing that it's the most up-to-date and most current version as well, which obviously leads to a higher level of insights overall down the road. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Lisa to talk for a few minutes about some of the negative consequences that we've seen in scenarios where firms are not utilizing a clear single source of truth, and then also some of the positive outcomes that can be reached when we are utilizing a platform that provides that common data environment.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, so when we're not looking at a single source of truth, a lot of not good things happen, right? We're often missing key information and deliverable dates. And that's because, if we think about the illustrations that Kyle just showed us, everyone is disconnected. So we're not able to easily share that information. And because of that, we're running into schedule and budget overages simply because we're just not communicating in the same, collaborative space. We're also running into repetitive work because, again, if no one is connected, or maybe just certain organizations are connected, but we're not connected as a whole in terms of, our entire project lifecycle and everything coming together, we're running into repetition because I might not be aware of a change in the project, right? And so maybe I'm doing something and then I find out later that, oh, actually, I was working off of obsolete information, so I've got to redo that work. Or maybe I'm working on something and someone else is also working on that same thing, but because we're disconnected and we're not communicating, we don't know that. And so we're putting effort and time and money into the same processes that we could eliminate by just communicating together. But when we do bring on a single source of truth, what good things happen, right? Well, we see projects being completed on time, and that's again because we're all connected. We have that consistent flow of project evolution. So if something changes, everybody is aware of that change, and we're able to progress. We're not, every time we move into a new phase of the project, taking 10 steps back. We have a positive trajectory that continues along the entire project lifecycle. We also have confidence in project information. We know that because we're all working off of a single space, everyone is working off of the most up-to-date information. I'm not questioning everything I'm looking at and saying, should I go reach out to these 4 other people and make sure that I'm looking at the right thing? I have confidence that I'm working off of the most relevant information. And we also win more work because we have a better brand, we have a better reputation, because we're not having to do repetitive work. We're not having to maybe build something and then it's getting torn down, right? And so people are wanting us on their projects. So lots of good things come out of working in a single space.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. So next, let's just take a quick look. These are a couple of screenshots that I've grabbed from out of the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. As you can see here, we're looking at my sandbox project that I have in place. And basically, this is just an example and a look at what your project would look like from the standpoint of which modules your team might be utilizing for the project. So right here, we're taking a look at this from the standpoint of just the docs or document management module, which is that file repository area there. And then we're also looking at it from the eyes of within the build module, which is the module that's primarily utilized for project management and field management. But what's most important here is that we have some of the exact same areas in both locations. And so in these particular screenshots, I was just showing that regardless of which module a team might be working in, all of the data, all of the information that's being stored is exactly the same in both of these different modules. So you'll also see, obviously, we're looking at files right now in both of these modules, but we also see we have issues listed in build as well as listed in docs. So if we were looking at the issues tab and putting them side by side, we're going to see the exact same list of issues that have been created on our project and that are being managed on our project. So again, regardless of the phase of the project that you or your team might be participating in, you know that it's fully connected with other modules and other phases where this information is being leveraged as well. So again, that's what that clear single source of truth is all about. We can also see inside of here when we've got some files saved that we also have versioning here. And so as information gets updated for the project, that particular document or design file automatically gets versioned up. And we have the ability in certain instances, especially with PDFs or with, say, Revit files or CAD files, to actually compare changes between the versions to really understand what has been changed in this newest version that's been shared with me, and therefore where do I need to be responding and how do I need to be responding to those changes. And again, something that would not be available or be possible if we weren't utilizing this clear single source of truth. Okay, so next let's talk a little bit about controlled file sharing. And we're going to be, as we talk about this, I've got a couple of videos to show after we talk about it for a few minutes. And I've actually got two videos that I'm going to be showing today to talk about controlled file sharing. And we're going to look at that from the standpoint of just the sharing of any of your files or documents that may be stored within your Construction Cloud project. And then also, especially seeing as how the biggest majority of our attendees in today's webinar are really design focused, I want to talk about how we can also control file sharing from the standpoint of our design files and how we're able to collaboratively work and design in this space together with our project partners. But again, control file sharing is very important. Knowing that people have access, knowing that people have access to that most up-to-date information is crucial. I think that we all have those horror stories of that one time when somebody got left off of an email distribution list, or somebody, was working off of an older set of construction documents. Maybe they didn't get an updated addendum. I've got some stories about that from my time within the electrical industry. And some of those are well, they're pretty nightmarish, you might even say. But again, controlled file sharing is massively important to make sure that everyone on the project is on the same page, and that we know that as we're moving forward, we're progressing in the right direction, and that we can do so with confidence because we know that everyone is, again, working with the most up-to-date information, and we can control how that information is distributed out to our project teams. Lisa, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's good. I can just talk about the negatives and the positives.
Yeah, certainly. So let's talk about some of those negative consequences when we're not having controlled file sharing and some of the positive outcomes that can be obtained.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're not utilizing controlled, file sharing, people see information that they shouldn't. So Kyle was just talking about how, sometimes people get left out of something, but what happens if we kind of cast too large of a net and people are getting privatized information that they shouldn't have access to? That can really be detrimental on a project. So it's important that we're able to privatize that. Also, links don't expire. right? If we're not utilizing a shared environment or a controlled environment, people can have access to information for forever. And maybe we don't want them to, right? Maybe we just want them to have a short or a timely window, but we don't have the ability to kind of have a handle on how long people have access to things if we don't utilize a platform like that. And then we also tend to send emails or information out in very siloed ways like emails. And that doesn't guarantee that it's seen, right? If I send really relevant, important project information out, and the way that I'm sending that out is through email, I have no idea that people have seen it. It might go to their junk box. Similarly, I might share it through a platform that also goes to spam or junk, and it's not being seen, right? And so those are really, really bad things that happen and can lead to, again, kind of going back to where we were, redundancies in work, or people working off of obsolete information because they didn't receive the information, or budget and schedule overages. So not good things. But if we are utilizing controlled file sharing, and we can share with just who we want to, right? I can privatize my information. I can share it with a certain person. I can share it with a certain type of role on my project, or maybe even a different company in my project, a specific company in my project, which is great, right? The information is just getting to who it needs to go to. And I also can share for just as long as I want to. So if I only want people to have access to something for a week, then I can set it up that way. Or if I want them to be able to see something for a year, I can do that too, right? But I have flexibility into that. I have control over that. And we also can share in a way that people are going to see it, right? So this is not just an email that might accidentally get deleted. We're sharing in a way that people are going to be very receptive to opening and seeing that information. So lots of very good things come from utilizing a controlled file sharing environment.
Great. Thanks so much, Lisa. So again, team, in this first video, we're just talking about how we can control file sharing overall within a project. And we can think about this from the standpoint of just project documentation, okay? And so we're going to talk about, and I'll talk about this as we're going through the video. There are really three primary ways that we can control file sharing within a project. The first way is we have the ability to create our different folder structures here, and we can manage permissions into the folders that we have within our project. So we can set up permissions for roles, for specific individuals on a project, or even for companies that are on a project here. And so as you can see here, I'm just using some role-based permissions that I'm setting up to the architectural folder where the architects will be housing their design files. And so as you saw there, I set different levels of permission based on the different teams that are there. Now, the next way that we can share is through what's called the share button. And so we're able to share from the share button at the folder level or at an individual file level. And as we set these up to share, again, whether we're sharing from a folder or from an individual file, we have the ability to share that with anybody on the project, or we can even share that with people outside of our project through a public link. And we can set up an expiration for that public link, as you can see right there. And the last way that we can control file sharing is through the use of the transmittals within the Docs module here in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So right here, I'm just showing how we can easily create a transmittal package. I grabbed the design model that we were utilizing and even a coordination model that is being utilized. And then also I'm going to come in here and grab a PDF CD set here. So I can combine the documentation from the project that needs to be in the transmittal, create that transmittal, give it a title for the transmittal, enter in who all that transmittal needs to be sent out to on the project here. And then we just basically save that. We can also then come in and review the files that have been attached and just save and create the transmittal. And it sends it out to those individuals. And as you can see there on our recipients list, it tells us exactly who it was sent out to, when it was created, and also the number of files that were included in that particular transmittal package there. Okay, now the next video that I wanted to show is really focused more around controlled file sharing from a design standpoint. And this next video is also a really good segue into our next topic that we're going to be talking about, which is being able to design in the same space at the same time. So right here, actually, I'm sorry, that moved into to say it looped the same video. So again, in this particular video, we're looking at this from the aspect of your Revit design teams and how they're able to better control their file sharing and the updates that they're issuing out to the team through the use of the Bim Collaborate Pro module that connects their Revit software to the Autodesk Construction Cloud, and then also through the use of the design collaboration module inside of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So right here, as you can see, we're just inside of the Revit software. We've made some changes to our file here. So just synchronizing those changes back to the central model that's hosted on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And then once we've done that and it's synchronized, then I'm able to close that out. I'm able to come back into my Revit home screen and publish the most recent changes that I've made inside of Revit out to the Autodesk Construction Cloud website. And so this is what we do to publish that and get those changes over to the website. So as you can see, that publish process has started there. And then we'll see from this point that now we're able to jump over into the web environment, and we can see that the publish process is taking place here in the web environment. That's why we've got the spinning wheel. You can see that our version is updated, and we can also see our date and time. Now, at this point, it's completed the processing. And so what we can do is we can go into our design collaboration module, and this is where we have the ability to create a package that includes those most up-to-date changes that our team has made. And we can relay those changes out to the other project teams that we're working with here. So it's very easy to do. We just come to our team's respective line on the timeline and hit the plus symbol to create a new package. So in this case, I want to include the model that I just published, as well as the different sheet sets. So we've got some 2D sheet sets and a couple of 3D views that are included with that set as well. And so basically we bundle that up into a package. We say we're going to share that, and we can even enter in a description here. So this is just going to say changes for the week ending of 10/22/21. And then we share that package out. Now our other project team members, our other project design team members would be notified that a new update has been made available from the electrical team. So in this case, the HVAC team is coming in here to take a look at, and then also start to utilize those changes. So they're able to click on the package that was just created. They can see what was included in it. You can even explore to see what changes may have been made. And then they have the ability to elect to consume that package, which consumes those latest changes, that latest published version of the Revit model, and makes it available for their team inside of the documents or inside of the Docs module and within their folder structure, so they can link into that file that was just recently provided to them from the electrical team. And again, this is looking at that from the perspective of utilizing a more of a shared or consumed collaboration method with your Revit design partners. There are typically three primary ways that we see people collaborating across design teams inside of the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform. One way would be through live linking of your models. The second way would be through the creation of the shared packages and linking through the shared folder. Shared folder is right down here in my folder structure, closer to the bottom. You can barely see it. But then also the other way is through the use of the consumed method there. And so that shared and consumed method do require the use of the design collaboration module, but it does give you the ability, and I hear this a lot from engineering teams, hey, I would like to be able to control when I see the updates from my project partners, and just because they're publishing an update doesn't mean that I really need to see those changes. So if it's an update that really is not going to impact my team, I may not want to bring that in as a new linked file into my model. So this does give you that ability to better understand what changes have been made from your project, from your other project design teams. You can also, again, as I mentioned before, explore and even compare what is in the new version in comparison with the last version, and then elect as a team as to whether or not we want to link that into our model that we're working off of and respond to the latest changes that have taken place. And so again, that directly leads into our next topic that we wanted to talk about, which is being able to design in the same space at the same time. And so we've already kind of taken a brief look at what that can look like when we're utilizing the design collaboration module. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, you could also accomplish this just through the use of the documents or the docs module in that document management area when we're utilizing what's called the work in progress or live linking methodology there. But again, the most important thing is really being able to understand the changes that your project partners are making and being able to understand those changes that are being made more frequently and sooner to when the changes take place so that your teams have the ability to respond when it's necessary. And what we've seen is a tremendously positive outcome from being able to design in a more collaborative space and through a collaborative environment like this is we don't find ourselves in a position like many of you probably experienced where we exchange a design file on Thursday afternoon because we have a coordination meeting on Friday. First thing Friday morning in most instances, we get that design file and we realize, wow, things that I've been working on for the past day and a half are going to have to be changed because I wasn't aware that the other project partners were moving in a different direction than my team. And so now we end up in a very long coordination meeting, in certain instances, many hours to work through the coordination. And then again, as you walk away, you're realizing that I'm having to basically provide a lot of rework in comparison to where I was at. So by being able to design in the same space at the same time and being able to link in your project partners' changes when applicable in a more timely fashion on a more regular basis, it does give you the ability to respond to changes as they're taking place. And it also gives you the ability to reduce the amount of time that's necessary in accomplishing the goals of the coordination meetings as well. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Lisa to, again, talk about some of the negative consequences when we're not designing in the same space at the same time and some of the positive outcomes that we can drive when we are.
Thanks, Kyle. All right. So negative consequences. What happens is not ideal when we don't design in the same space collaboratively. Well, we don't have a lot of confidence that we're working off of current information, right? If I'm working on something in a design space and unbeknownst to me, someone else is working on, the same area on their own desktop, on their own computer. I don't know that they've maybe changed something, which would then in turn, need to tweak my design, right? So that's not ideal. We're also working in very siloed areas of communication for revisions, right? I don't know, again, what's been updated, what hasn't. I don't know if my red line is still relevant. So just all not awesome things. It's also very time consuming. If I am working on something and then I have to go send that to somebody else and then they have to open it and they have to work on it and then they have to get back to me, this takes a lot of time, as opposed to, looking at everything in the same space and very clearly being able to see what's been changed, right? And being able to make my revisions based off of what I'm seeing in real time right in front of me. You also can't open file types that you don't have licenses to. So, I work at Autodesk, right? I know that there's a ton of different file types that are available, not only from our company, but so many other companies. And so if I receive a design file that I don't have access to, it's pretty meaningless to me. I can't do anything with it. And it really prohibits me from getting insight into what that design looks like. Probably going to have to ask for that person to PDF, their design and send it to me. And at which that point, I'm sure it's totally obsolete and not relevant anymore. But if we are designing in the same space at the same time, we're going to save time on rework. Again, that's because I'm seeing the changes and the information in real time. We'll also have immediate insight into what's working and what isn't, right? I can see in front of me what design aspects or features are good to go and what are having problems, and I can make changes to them right away. I don't have to wait, until I've received a new file to take a look at that. We also don't have this never-ending back and forth cycle, right? If I've designed something, I have to send it off, they have to look at it, I make a change, they make a change, we just go back and forth and it feels like it's never ending. And because of that, we're not able to have that positive trajectory, right? That ongoing positive trajectory that we talked about earlier. But if we are designing in the same space, then we have that, right? I can see what needs to be changed, it gets changed, we continue moving forward at a really good, a really good level of progression. And then lastly, you have the ability to look at file types that you don't own, right? Again, I know, the cost associated with AutoCAD and Revit and Civil 3D and tons of other platforms. And if you don't have access, if you don't have those softwares downloaded on your computer, you're not going to be able to look at those file types, but we can in this space. So I might not have access to Revit on my computer, but if I'm working in an environment that allows me to design in the same space, it doesn't matter, right? I can look at Revit files in a space without having to have that expensive licensure. And so that really just allows for our designs to be more accessible and our work to be more transparent. And again, we are able to continue on with the progression of our project.
Thank you, Lisa. And that last one is a huge call out, and the fact that within the Autodesk Construction Cloud environment, it has the built-in viewers that are there. So again, the ability to view whether we're talking about DWG files, Revit files, Navisworks files, NWDs or NWC files. That's huge, especially for people that may not actually be. Let's think about your leadership teams and your stakeholders within your firm that may not be actively involved in the design process, but they still want to be kept up to date around the progression of the project. This environment gives them the ability to go in and view the most latest published changes that are out on the website without even having to have a Revit license installed, whether that's an actual paid version or you're just talking about the Revit viewer. So that's really huge for companies to be able to invite people into the project and then be able to go in and review and really better understand what's taking place from a design and modeling perspective without actually having to be in the desktop design products themselves. So that is definitely a great advantage there. So thank you for calling that one out, Lisa. So next, I've got another brief video here. Again, this one is talking about being able to design in the same space at the same time. And it also kind of points out what we were talking about just a moment ago regarding the viewers that are available here in the web page, and again, how that correlation takes place between the Revit software and the Autodesk Construction Cloud environment here. So as you can see, we've got our different folders here. I was looking in the architectural folder, and we can see their Revit model right here. I'm in the electrical folder, and I can see the electrical Revit model as well. And so now whenever I come into the Revit environment and I go into my Construction Cloud hosted project, we can see that we have all the same folder structure that's built in there. And depending upon our permission levels here, we're able to go in and open up and actually work in our team's respective model. We can open that up and it's in an editable format. As you can see, again, this is our live Revit file here. We've got everything in here that the team has set up for the project. And again, this works in the exact same way for the other teams as well. So I'm jumping back over to the home screen because I'm going to go back in and we're actually going to open up and we're going to look at the electrical model that we have stored in our project as well. So again, just coming back in and navigating through, I'd go into my electrical folder and open up the electrical model. And as you can see here, that latest version was published already. So this is just the model opening up there. Also for teams that have not used this, the speed at which your open and synchronizations happen is really, really, in many cases, mind-blowing when you get right down to it. It's not moving the entirety of the project data whenever you're opening or synchronizing the project there. So we can see our 3D view inside of our Revit model. And now if I come back into the web environment and I open up or I click on that Revit model in the Construction Cloud environment, you can see it's the exact same 3D view. And again, we're actually seeing that 3D view without the use of any of the paid desktop design products themselves. So that's a huge advantage right there. And again, being able to design in that same space at the same time and being more connected with our other design teams is a tremendous advantage of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. All right, so next, let's talk about the ease of being able to self-check our work. Okay, and so we're talking with the engineers today, and so at one point or another, most of you on the call have probably been in the position where your firm or your team has been brought in as the role of the prime engineer on the project. Okay, so that means that you're responsible for the coordination of the different design models there, and making sure that we're running clash detection, that changes are being made based on the clashes that we're finding. And what we've seen previously is obviously that was going to require that we had a specific person or a specific team of people from our organization that was their responsibility on the project. But in many cases, what we were seeing was we were getting either possibly the native design files or an export, usually as an NWC file, that we were then loading into Navisworks and running our clash detection inside of the Navisworks project, or inside of the Navisworks product. So there are a couple of things to keep in mind there. Now we have to have people that are trained to utilize the Navisworks Manage software, just the same way that they've already probably been trained to utilize the Revit software. But again, can be a very, very burdensome process that is left to be managed by a very small group of people, possibly even just one person from your team. But it's massively important that we are staying on top of regular clash detection and making sure that any clashes that we find, are they real clashes? Are they acceptable tolerances? Is it something that we need to assign out as an issue to a team or an individual to correct? All of that was having to be done between different solutions to accomplish the goal. Now within the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform, through the use of the model coordination module, we have the ability to more easily self-check our own work. Okay. And so I've got a short video that we'll show some of that in just a few minutes, but I want to hand it over to Lisa to talk about some of those negative consequences whenever we're not able to check our own work, and some of the positive outcomes that come along with having that capability.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, so negative consequences, to kind of piggyback off of what Kyle just said, typically this work falls on the shoulders of one, or if we're lucky, two people, which makes it a very, very siloed process, that only those folks that have that license type, might say Navisworks in this instance, have access to. And then the rest of the team is really relying on those folks to, to look and see if there's any clashes or potential interferences and communicate that back with the rest of the team. So it's a very, very siloed process, very time consuming, and a lot of other work is on hold until those folks communicate back to the rest of the design team. There's also no easy way to share open and archived issues with the rest of the team, right? It really does just kind of fall in the realm or in the view of those couple of folks that are working on clash detection. And so that's really siloed too. And we also, can't take a look back and say, okay, I think that this was an issue before, but I'm not 100% sure. We would have to go to kind of those gatekeepers of those archived issues to understand and get insight into, what's been changed and what was previously a problem. We also, not checking the work leads to problems later on in the project, right? We all know that. If we don't find these issues while we're still in the design phase before things have been built, then we run into very, very, very costly expenses on our project, not in terms of, just going over in our budget, but also we're probably not going to finish our project in the time that we had projected, right? So a lot of negatives associated with this one. But in terms of positive outcomes, we have visibility into where attention needs to go. If I can see on my own where there is a potential interference, then I know that that's an area that I need to focus on, and I don't have to wait for someone else on my team or someone else on someone else's team to let me know that I need to make a revision to this area. We also have an understanding of why issues are closed or deemed not issues, right? So if someone else is in kind of control of the issues and the justification as to why they may or may not be an issue, I don't have any insight into that. But if I can look at the clashes on my own screen, then I can understand that, maybe this penetration, this is valid, right? Or it's a really, really, it's not a deep penetration. So it's something that we can deem not an issue. I have insight into that and I can see that, which again, just continues with overall project progression. We also are working in a collaborative environment, and that's what we've been talking about this entire time, the importance and the value of everybody being on the same page at the same time. And again, this is going to help to eliminate costly issues and rework, because we're able to get ahead of these problems right before things are actually being built and we're having to tear them down and have another go at them.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. All right. So let's let's take a quick look at what the self-checking of your work looks like inside of the Construction Cloud platform here. One of the things that I'm going to point out before I start the video, as you can see here, I've got a folder set up here that's called coordination in my project. And as you saw under my AD hospital parent folder, I've got the different subfolders for the different disciplines that are designing on the project. The way that this would typically work is after we published out our most current version from Revit to the Construction Cloud web interface, I would just say, hey, I want to take a copy of this model and I'm going to put it in my coordination folder. And I'm basically defining the coordination folder as the folder that's used for the model coordination. And so as soon as files start to get dropped in there, it automatically starts to look at the different 3D views and all of the Revit models that have been put into the coordination folder. And then it starts to run clash detection between those different 3D views with the other Revit models and the other discipline models that are in there. So let's take a look at what that process looks like here. So we would start off, we would obviously have our different files in the coordination folder, but then we would come into the model coordination module. And so first we could have looked at the models, but now I'm just going to my clash matrix. So right here, we can see all of the different 3D views that have been produced from the different Revit models that we have up here. And so we're going to look at clashes between the architectural model in conjunction with the structural model. Okay. And so we can see 1,988 clashes overall. I can select one of the clashing elements and it tells me that that basic wall is clashing with 10 other elements in the structural model. And so as you can see, I've clicked on that and it's highlighted in red. I can actually click on each of the individual ones and it brings it in and shows me that one a little bit closer. Okay. And so we can actually look at the individual clashes, or we can group and manage those together. Now we're going to say this is not an issue because it's a valid interface. Okay. So now what we're doing is we've taken those 10 clashes and they've been removed and marked as not an issue. So they're not going to show up as clashes on our project anymore. Now we can go in and start to look at any of the other clashes that are showing up in the model. We can look at individual clashes. We can even come in and we can select, as you'll see in just a second here, I'm going to click on that other piece and we can actually select multiple clashes simultaneously if necessary, or turn those off. Okay. So we're going to grab this one here. So we're looking at what that clash is. It's a rectangular column that's clashing with a flange column. And so now we can create the issue. Now I accidentally hit the cancel button here and I shouldn't have. So we'll go back into that, but we just hit that create issue button, just like select the item again, hit the create issue button, drop that issue push pin on top of the element that is the clash element. Now what this is doing is this is automatically opening up the issue creation window, and I can assign this issue to the responsible designer to make sure that these changes are made. We can put in different information, due dates, location, things of that nature. But as you saw, when I created that issue, that particular element that was clashing, now it has disappeared as well. And the team member that we assigned that issue to is getting an email notification stating that they have a new issue that they need to resolve. One of the other benefits of utilizing this in conjunction with the Revit software, specifically with the Bim Collaborate Pro licensing, is when we create issues inside of a Revit model and we tag those issues to an individual, there's also now what's called the issues add-in inside of your Revit software that you can download and install. And that's going to give you the ability to open up your cloud-hosted model, and then also open up and view any of the issues that have been associated with that model that have been assigned to you or to your team. So you can pull those issues up, you can see where those issues lie at, and then you can take the corrective action right there within the Revit software. Also, with that add-in, we also have the ability not only to make the changes that are necessary to correct the issue in the design file, we can also update the issue status and note that this has been corrected, and you'll see the changes that have been made on the next published version. So again, other handy tools that are available and really allow us to connect this Autodesk Construction Cloud environment with our native design environment that our teams are using as well. Okay. So just wanted to call that one out. And the last thing that we wanted to talk about today, before we talk just a little bit more about the Construction Cloud platform overall, was visibility into issue responsibility. Okay, and we just saw an issue being created as a part of being able to self-check our work. But it's so important to be able to not just be able to create an issue, but also be able to track those issues and understand who those issues are the responsibility of at any given point. The biggest problem that we can some of the bigger problems that we can run into on a project is, hey, we issue, we create an issue, or we set up an issue or a task for someone to complete. We send it, we send it over to them. We hope they get it through an email possibly, but then without an actual process for managing that, not just the creation, but managing through closure, we're really not sure what happens with that issue after we send that email out to somebody. Unless they email us back and say, hey, I've fixed that, we really don't know what happens. We're sending that out and saying, hey, we need you to address this. And we're kind of hoping and wishing for the best. Okay. But within the Autodesk Construction Cloud environment, it does give teams the ability to not only create issues that need to be looked into, possibly design issues that need to be responded to, but you also have the ability to better manage the issues and understand who issues have been assigned to, and understand, what's the impact that those issues might be making. We do have the ability to set up and create, different dates associated with the issues. So we also have the ability to see, hey, are issues not being responded to in a timely manner? And so we'll see that in a short video in just a moment. But I'm going to hand it over to Lisa to talk about some of the negative consequences whenever we don't have visibility into the issue responsibility, and some of the positive outcomes when we do.
Well, first of all, issues don't get resolved, right? If I don't know that maybe I'm responsible for something, or again, it gets sent to me through an email and I just happen to not see it, those issues don't get picked up, right? So we don't have the assurance that things are actually getting resolved and we're moving forward. There's also no transparency into who's working on what, or what the status is. So if I'm waiting for, let's say, Kyle to revise something, but Kyle's not aware that he's responsible for something, but I don't actually even know that it's Kyle that I'm waiting for, we're just in this holdup and we don't know who to reach out to get resolution on that. So that just leads to a mess too. And also a lack of visibility just leads to more rework, right? If I don't know, that certain things need to be picked up, they don't get picked up. We end up going into the field, building something, it's erroneous. We have to do more work. Okay. In positive outcomes, though, I can clearly understand where we are in terms of issue closure. So I can see, okay, Kyle's responsible for this issue. He's in the middle of doing it. He says that he's probably going to be done by the end of the week. That's great. And that allows me to plan for, the tasks that I have to do that build off of that revision. We also have confidence that appropriate revisions are being made, right? If I redline something, I can see who's in charge of fixing it, and then I have confidence that that issue is going to be, picked up in the cycle of designs, right? In the next version of designs, and we can move forward. We also are able to hold people accountable. So again, going back to the example of Kyle, if I see that Kyle has 10 issues in his court, but he hasn't worked on any of them, and they were all due last week, I know exactly who to go reach out to. Kyle, to say, why are these things not getting done? If we're just kind of tasking people through emails, I don't have visibility into who's responsible for what. I don't know when they were told that they needed to get this issue done by. Just leads to a lot of problems. But if I have insight and transparency into that, it helps us move along much faster.
Absolutely. And, leave it to Kyle to keep holding up the project, right? That's
Yes.
always the case. All right. So team, really quick, another video talking about how we have better visibility into issue responsibility here. We'll go through this one, and then we'll also look at a couple of slides talking about the different modules that we have available in the Construction Cloud. But I know that we're getting close to our time, and we've also got a question that I wanted to try to address. So in here, as you can see, we have our issues tab. This is the list of all of the issues that have been created on the project. And this issues tab and the list of issues is going to be the same here in Docs as it would be if we were looking at this within Build. We can see right here who the issue is assigned to. We also, as to the right of that, you can see if there was a due date or a start date. We could see the title for the issue, and just to the right of the title and the ID, we can see what status that issue is in as well. So if we click on that issue, we can go in and we can review the details. We can see, what was included with that issue as a reference, whether it's a screenshot, a file, or anything to that nature as well. And so again, the ability to quickly and easily understand who is responsible for those issues and what status those issues are in. And also, again, being able to track a start date, possible start date for correcting the issue and when that issue is due. If we get beyond these due dates, these will turn to red if they're not already marked as closed out as well. So just highlighting even more things that are past due. Okay. So that wraps up our discussion around the visibility into issue responsibility. I want to take just a couple of minutes here to talk about the different Construction Cloud modules that are available on the Construction Cloud platform here. And then also definitely want to get to that question that we've got in the Q&A panel right now. So our journey into the Construction Cloud starts with Autodesk Docs. Okay, this is just kind of that's again, that single source of truth, that common data environment there. And Docs is included with your AEC collection licensing as well. So again, if you have an AEC collection license that's assigned to you, you can be invited into Autodesk Construction Cloud projects, if nothing else, just to participate in the document management or the document and file exchange for the project. And again, that Docs module is going to give you access to the document control, the ability to see document versioning, as well as participate in document review and approval workflows if necessary. Also having tools like that transmittal tool that we saw, as well as the issue management there as well. The next step would be into the Bim Collaborate and Bim Collaborate Pro licensing. And so the Bim Collaborate offering is going to give you access to the design collaboration module, which is what we were looking at with the controlled design file sharing. It's also going to give you access into that automated clash detection that we were talking about in the self-checking of your work, which is the model coordination module. Again, it does include the issue management. It does include access to the documents that are stored with the project as well. The only difference between the Bim Collaborate offering and the Bim Collaborate Pro offering is the Bim Collaborate Pro offering is what's necessary to connect your Revit design work to the Autodesk Construction Cloud environment itself. So the Bim Collaborate Pro license would be necessary to make sure that your Revit teams could cloud host those models into the Construction Cloud and work on those simultaneously with their other team members internally, as well as being able to connect to the other project partners' models as well there. Okay, our next module here is Autodesk Takeoff. Autodesk Takeoff is a great tool for extracting 2D and 3D quantity takeoffs, whether we're working off of a 2D PDF document or whether we're working off of a 3D model, we can get those quantities that are going to be necessary for the project as well. And last but not least, we have the Autodesk Build module. So this is the module that's really suited for overall project management as well as for the field management. The ability to do things like create your submittals, create and manage submittals, RFIs for the project, checklist and punch lists, maybe that are associated with safety. Safety checklists and punch lists, quality punch lists, and also checklists and punch lists that might be associated with project closeout. Also with the build module comes the cost module as well, the cost management module, which is going to give you the ability to better understand, what is the financial health of our project. Where are we at with our project in comparison to what our, agreed upon contract value was versus potential change orders that have come up or even owner requested change orders and things of that nature as well. And also, most importantly, giving you that access to the document management area as well. So I'm going to hand it over here to Lisa to talk about some of the Autodesk Construction Cloud differentiators kind of on a bigger picture level here.
Sorry, I was still muted. Kyle, if you could click through,
yep,
there's
there we
4 of them. Awesome. So really just what our focus is on unified data, right? That's what makes us different, is that as Kyle showed, we're going through the entire project lifecycle and we're sharing all of that data. So at the foundation of our whole project is that document management piece. So as we go from, design to to operate, all the way through operations, right? We're using that consistent data. So that is that collaborative environment there. And that allows us to get through our project much faster and in a much more efficient way, because we're also creating our project and managing it through it in a single space. We're getting business insights. We're understanding what types of issues are we running into all the time. Maybe what subcontractors are giving us the most problem. Who's taking the longest time to get things back, right? It's giving us insight so that we can make better progress on that current project, but we also can understand that and leverage it for future projects, right? It just helps us to become a more efficient organization. We're also enterprise grade. So we can do things like templatized projects, right? You might have a format that you want all of your projects to be, and we can manage them on an account basis. So you don't have to build out a project individually every single time. And also, in terms of enterprise grade is, adding certain people to certain types of projects, right? Creating templates for certain types of projects, for different types of verticals or horizontals. All of those things are included. And then pervasive simplicity. So life is already complicated enough, right? It's totally understood that if we're presenting a software solution that is incredibly complicated and complex, people are not going to pick it up. So simplicity is honestly number one in terms of the ACC platform. We want to make this something that is enjoyable and fun and easy and painless to use, so that you do use it and you do see really successful project outcomes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. And so team, that wraps up the webinar for today. Now we do have one question that was put in here, and feel free if anybody else has any questions, let me know. But I know we're a few minutes over, but I do want to address this question that came in from Robert. So Robert, you mentioned here that we found that when we attempt to publish our models with both 3D views and all of the sheets in the model, that the publish often fails, even after hours of cycling. However, creating the DWF data set or the DWF set or export, which was, as you mentioned, a troubleshooting step that was provided from Autodesk, that typically does not fail. And so you asked, is there a concentrated effort to improve the speed or reliability of publishing? Yes, that is taking place. Now, one thing I will mention here, Robert, one of the things that I have seen that has a tremendous impact on publishing and the amount of time that it takes to publish from the Revit environment out to the Construction Cloud web interface is how long has it been since the last publish took place? Okay. Whenever you upload your Revit model for the first time, it automatically publishes that as well based on your published settings that you have in place. If you do not have any published settings in place, it only publishes the default 3D view. Now, if you're working in a scenario where, okay, so publishes are usually weekly. Okay, so in that case, again, that typically shouldn't be too much. It would depend on how much work is taking place over the course of the week. I've seen some people that like to, or teams that like to publish at the end of the day, just because it usually does help to, speed up that publish process and how long it takes for that information to show up out on the website. But I have seen instances where people have gone, weeks or even a month or more between when they published their changes. And in those instances, I've heard of it taking 4, 5, 6 hours for all of the changes to get published, because there have been so many changes made to the model and so many additional 2D views or sheets that have been added to the published settings as well. Now, another thing that could potentially have an impact or cause a publish to fail in a scenario like this is, are we actually putting information on a sheet or on a 2D view that's coming from a different program or file? Okay, so I have seen where that if it's trying to derive data that is coming from, say, like a linked CAD file or something of that nature, that could potentially have an impact on that publish failing. So, I would have to, in a scenario here, to truly try to get into the root of what might be causing it, really need to have a deeper conversation and take a look at the project, take a look at the sheets that you're publishing out, and what information that is and where that information is coming from, to have a better understanding of, is there a deeper root cause that we could look into that might be the issue here. Now, you've mentioned though that apparently it sounds like exporting the DWF set has been successful for your teams. And so what you may even do is, if that's working just fine to get your 2D sheets out, you could utilize that method, and you may even go in and change to where what you publish from Revit out to the BIM 360 web interface basically have two different published sets that you can select that you're using whenever you go to publish out to the website versus what you're exporting out to your DWF set that's being exported as well. But again, I have seen instances where if we're trying to bring information in onto a 2D sheet that is actually being derived from a linked file, that can potentially lead to a failure in the publishing process there. So Robert, I hope that helped out and maybe sharing some insight on what could be happening there. If there are any other questions, team, please feel free to go ahead and tag those in the chat right now, or feel free to reach out to your respective sales rep within ATG, or if you're not sure who that is, you can always reach out through our general email address, which is just sales@atgusa.com. And again, your sales rep would be able to help you to coordinate time for a call with me if necessary, and have a deeper conversation where we can try to help to answer your questions, or in a scenario like this, Robert, possibly even try to dig in and find out what that root cause might be as to why your publish was failing on that project in particular. So thank you everyone for your time today. I do apologize that we've gone a few minutes over, but I really appreciate your attendance and your participation, and we definitely look forward to talking to you more in the future, and possibly even seeing you on future webinars. So have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.